And since we don't have a chair here or a vice chair, I'll just go ahead and lead the meeting agenda. Is that okay with everybody? For the Clean Water Program Management Council,
Happy to do that, yes.
Thursday at 2 p.m., July 13th. Hybrid meeting today and Zoom and in person is spelled wrong right here. Lake County Courthouse, 255 North 4th Street. So in attendance, I think I already ran through that, Kelly, for the minutes. So, and we have a member of the public here, Betsy Kahn, and then we also have a guest will be Bonnie DeBerry from EOA is here as well.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I guess I need to put the thing on there to go through. So today the meeting materials include 4 attachments, the minutes from April 13th meeting and acronym cheat sheet, and then the attachment 3 and 4, which are reimbursement agreements, were all in the packet. There's also another attachment as part of those reimbursement agreements, which is the grants, the Blue Room Committee grants agreements too. They're listed as exhibits in the reimbursement agreement, so that's why they're included in the packet. And just a reminder that all this information can be found on the agenda center for the Clean Water Management Council here. And thanks for Kelly for getting all that organized when the new website went over. So do we want to approve? Oh, we already did this. So the first action is to approve the minutes from the April 13th meeting.
Move to approve.
Do you need this? Yeah. Oh. Creepy out here. Okay. Anybody second?
I second. Marina Delajanis.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. So minutes approved, passed. No objections. Is that it? That's all I say?
Works for now.
Okay.
We'll talk later.
Okay, item number 4, consideration of any items not posted to the agenda. I know Marina has one.
Yeah. Can folks in the Zoom room hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Marina Delajanis, County of Lake, I would like to add an agenda item for next meeting. Oh, there we go. For next meeting to discuss the Brown Act, especially as it relates to hybrid meeting options. I'm reading Supervisor Sabatier's mind right now. So I would like to propose that we add that on our November meeting agenda.
And maybe if we can just add that we should all be in person to listen to that, that would help out.
Yeah, I think that especially with the new requirements for the Brown Act and meeting hybrid, we want to ensure that we continue to remain compliant with Brown Act. So if that's something that you wanted to add on, then we can propose that as well.
So you're proposing that we are all in person at the next meeting and have the discussion about the Brown Act?
Because we're supposed to be, we're supposed to have a quorum of people who are in person. And if you're not in person, you have to have a reason as to why you're not in person. If you're a public member, you can join in through hybrid, and do that. If you're a staff member, you can join in hybrid and whatever. I don't want to stop this meeting from moving forward. I think there's too many important things to be done. I think it was appropriately notified for the public that we are having this meeting. It's accessible to the public, but I think we need to get it back into the old way of doing things using the new laws that are available for us to use.
Okay.
And I can volunteer myself to give an overview of the Brown Act. I have a few slides, and then we can talk about those specific reasons of what deems you able to call in hybrid if you're a council member.
That'd be great. In preparation for this meeting, I did send an email requesting at least Lakeport, because I knew we were gonna have it here, and I was like, we're close by, for asking members so we can have a quorum in person for this one, because I thought we were having that discussion kind of and wanted to start these meetings in person.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out the alternative of if we can't meet in person is we can't have the meeting. I just want to make sure that I'm clear when I send out the emails, the agenda, that if we don't meet in person, we can't have the meeting, because it just to make sure that my
Quorum needs
it's taken seriously
Yeah.
and people show up, because
Yes.
we didn't get people show up today.
And there's rules and regulations that tie it, and I can send those specific
Okay.
legislative.
I just want to know what I can say, like making sure that I'm saying everything clearly of like, you have to be in person,
You have,
or
yeah,
we can't go forward with the meeting.
because we won't meet a quorum.
Right, and it's either you or your alternate too, so somebody has to be there. Okay, Kelly, so we'll make sure we make an item for the next agenda. Are there any questions from the rest of the group?
I do have another, just a brief discussion of an extra item if it's possible.
Yeah.
So whenever it fits, I'd like to better understand what is being done on Molesworth Creek. I brought up on Tuesday the issues that I have with the expansion of the landfill. Molesworth Creek's headwater is right in the landfill. And I'd like to know, anyways, I'd like to know what Clean Water Act activities are happening on Molesworth Creek to ensure that what's coming into the lake is appropriate.
Okay, that's a great item. I know that USGS has installed a gauge there and they're doing water quality monitoring as part of the Blue Ribbon Committee. And I think that gauge went in before this season, which is a good season to get data for that. Right, and it's prior to any work being done upstream. So you'll have a before and after. And there was some potential plans for Molesworth Creek to go through the urban restoration stream program through is it DWR? Maybe it's DWR. But that could be renewed because City of Clear Lake is a DAC that they get priority. It's an urban stream and it has impacts. So that gets a priority for that program. So there's options out there, but there's nothing else currently planned except for the gauge that's on there.
But just
Angela, that is the State Department of Water Resources, Urban Stream.
Right.
Renewal.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy. I was like, Betsy would know this. Yeah, I haven't looked at it for a few years. Okay. So we'll have that item too. Kelly, make sure there's an item on there for discussion of Molesworth Creek headwaters. Is it worth getting somebody to talk about the plans for the landfill expansion?
No, my goal is how can clean water help? Because the landfill's been there for the last 60 years. So what's happening today is not so important as what's been slowly trickling down into the earth. And the rules have changed to be more, again, I don't want to get involved in the conversation until we get to it, but it's more of a, how can Clean Water Act help?
Okay.
Ensuring.
And our stormwater permit that's related to that. Okay, great. Just want to make sure I know for prepping. Great, thanks. Anything else from the group or any questions follow up for that?
I can provide some background information on that if anybody wants it.
Yeah, Betsy, can we have some emails to put stuff together so we actually can have some information for that item for next meeting?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so next item.
One rugged laptop.
We got that special because we field stuff. Okay, attachment 2 is the acronyms cheat sheet. Again, this is updated, posted to the website. We did not have any additions for last meeting, but in case there's anything that we talk about today for acronym or something that comes up that you would like to add to that, just let me know. We'll make a note of it in the minutes and then we add it. Any questions on item 5A? Okay, so the next item is the LED low impact development, speaking of acronyms, contract. So we contracted EOA and we had that contract approved through the board in May. So yay. And we do have an update today from EOA, not an LID because we have to wait until the new permit starts before we can implement and make those LID documents and trainings. But we do have an update on the new permit, which is great. So we have Bonnie DeBerry here from EOA. Bonnie, can you confirm you're here? I think I saw you. Great.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, so I have your slides in this presentation. Can I just go through them for you and you can talk? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you start with the introduction and I'll go to your first slide.
Okay, so nice to see you all again. Thank you for inviting me to your council meeting. I have a few slides to present on the sort of admin draft phase 2 permit. And I put these slides together with my colleague, Brittany Bulkey. So you can go on to the next slide. This next slide shows some anticipated dates that we have received from the State Water Board. They just released some draft, administrative draft provision language to CASQA. traditional, non-traditional sections, a whole new section on schools, and trash language. We're still waiting for the TMDL Appendix G, which is probably going to have a lot of information that's interesting to Lake County. Currently, CASQA is involved in informal discussions with Water Board staff. Water Board is not accepting written comments or any kind of formal comment process on this admin draft language. They have said that there'll be another full informal draft in September, perhaps updated based on current conversations, or at the very least, hopefully that will contain the sections that we haven't received yet. A full formal public review draft of the phase 2 permit is anticipated next spring. And that'll trigger the public formal comment period. They'll have workshops and then a board hearing, with the permit hopefully considered for adoption in fall of 2024. So over a year from now, we might see the next permit. Next slide.
At the last meeting, it was that timeline was expecting to see the permit in spring of 2024. So it seems like each time we get like a 6-month addition. And just so the council knows, when we wrote the contract for EOA for the LID with anticipation of having a long term before the new permit went in, as we put a lot of, I think it expires in 2028 or something, just to make sure we have time. Just want to let folks know that.
Okay, so the next 2 slides have bullets just describing some of the notable changes that we've seen in this admin draft language. This slide talks about everything except post-construction LID, and the next slide focuses on changes to the LID section. So just overall, it looks like the entire permit is being reorganized. So it's a little bit challenging to open it up side by side with the old permit and see what's different. But we've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and so have other members of CASQA. And CASQA members have been adding comments that they have to a shared comment spreadsheet that's being used to drive the discussions. So the bullets here are some changes to the permit. Basically, there's shorter timelines for compliance, although being an existing permittee, these probably wouldn't make a big difference to the Lake County program. There will be stormwater asset management requirements, which is one big item of contention with CASQA and the state board. There may be requirements to inventory, map, and document operations and management for all stormwater assets. Definition still in flux. There's several new types of inspections that are being required. There's new businesses that are being added to the business inspection program, and also additional inspections for hotspots and construction sites. IDDE responses are now, according to the admin draft language, required 24 hours a day for assessment and cleanup. And dry weather outfall investigations and sampling have been expanded. There's some language changes to the erosion and sediment control plans. Now they're going to be called stormwater pollution control plans, and gravel has been added to the definition of impervious surfaces. The PEEP, Program Effectiveness Assessment and Improvement Plans, that requirement is now being expanded to cover all BMPs rather than just pollutants of concern. If you recall, a year ago or so, EOA developed a PEEP for Lake County, and we also prepared a 5-year assessment. So there may be required changes to that task. Trash implementation has been ongoing as a result of the trash amendments, which are statewide and which were enforced through these 13-383 orders. Those trash requirements are now going to be added to the phase 2 permit. The draft language that we've seen differs quite a bit from the 13-383 orders that were sent. So that's another big topic that CASQA is discussing with the board. And I doubt this applies to any of the Lake County permittees, but schools are being added to the phase 2 permit. However, only schools that are in districts with over 10,000 students.
That's not us, right? No.
6,000 maybe in Canoctown.
Yeah, and that's the biggest one. Okay. You're
Okay.
correct. That won't apply to us. Thanks, fine.
So that's a major win.
That's good.
that we've
Yes.
achieved
I was
with
worried
the
about
board.
that.
But stay tuned for the next reissued permit.
So I have a question on the trash implementation requirements. We had a plan, from 2019, we never got any feedback on the plan from the water board. Does it seem like with the new trash requirements, like we're gonna have, one of the requirements is to update the plan for their requirements? Just, they're gonna give us requirements, be like, now you guys have to do these requirements.
Yeah, I don't know. I can compile specific questions and try to get back to you. I do know that the board indicated to CASQA that they got the impression that nobody had done anything based on the 13-383 orders, in spite of the fact that every permittee, as far as I know, has sent in implementation plan indicating which track they're following. And I don't know of anybody who's gotten feedback from the board on their trash requirements. So,
because they just required us to do the plan, not necessarily, and we put in stuff for reporting, but yeah, okay.
yeah. So, and the deadline is 2030 to reach the goal of treating all of your PLUs either with structural controls or through other kinds of measures documented through on-land visual trash assessments. And I'm not aware of any real progress reporting that they've required,
Right.
but I don't know the details of the admin draft language.
That's what I was saying, is like, I don't think we have any required reporting except what we said we would do in our plan. So it's interesting that they're like, nobody's done anything, but they didn't ask to have any of that reported. So
Exactly.
there's a question, Betsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I guess this is a two-part question because first of all, the key thing that to me, that most significant difference in the third step of the permits, this next permit will be the third step in the 3-step permit process. And at that point, the state, the permit becomes punitive. In other words, if you don't do something, they'll now have the administrative civil liabilities or other remedies to fine for violations. So the other part of my question is, where do we stand on our time orders to respond to the state on our activities that we're doing? And maybe that's not part of EOA's bailiwick, but it's tied together.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you. I would have to defer to somebody else in the room who's more familiar with your time orders. And we can also look into the language in the permit, if it exists in this version, to see about punitive violation notices.
Yeah, so as far as I know, the only time orders we have are the TMDL. We have the pyrethroid order, which we're in compliance on, and we have a slide about that today. And then the TMDL order is in review and is going before the water board in October. And I have a bullet in that in the slide, but as far as I know, there's only 2 time orders that we have.
Thanks, Angela.
Yeah. And those are different from the rest of the permit in that they have a specific if you don't meet this by this deadline, we can fine you up to $1,000 a day until it's remedied or something. So I think that's where that comes in.
Yeah, the punitive step in the three-step stormwater program permits comes from the US EPA NPDES program. It was then handed off to the state in a state permit, and then the various boards issued their compliance permits, or the state water board issued the compliance permit. It's just that's what we're expecting to have. And the only reason I mention that is because we have Supervisor Sabatier in the room, who pays a huge amount of attention to making sure we don't lose money here. So
Thank you. This is your next slide, Bonnie.
Right, thanks. So this slide lists some of the notable changes to post-construction or LID section of the permit. Again, just to set the stage, this section of the permit is now 33 pages. It's long and it's convoluted. It's very different from the previous permit. Some of the notable changes. In 6 months, a post-construction stormwater management program is required. So this is the task that EOA is contracted to develop on behalf of Lake County. So we'll now have a deadline, and that's 6 months from the permit effective date, usually. So they just put in these sort of in 1 year or in 6 months. So 6 months from fall of 2024. If we're going by the current anticipated schedule. And then in 1 year, the permittees must have enforceable mechanisms to implement. So requirements have to be adopted into your ordinances or codes, regulations, specifications. Public projects that do not require ministerial or discretionary approval and have not filed under CEQA, notice of exemption, must now meet requirements, the post-construction requirements. Previously, that wasn't required. Single-family residential projects are now regulated. There are changes in how the sizing criteria, changes in the sizing criteria. So stormwater treatment, retention, and peak flow now have separate water quality treatment and retention and flow requirements. So this has been modified, and the way I understand it is whatever the largest BMP size defined by these different types of criteria, that's the one that you would have to go with.
So can we just, sorry, Bonnie, before the single family residential projects were not required to have LID, correct, in the previous permits?
That's right, even if they met the size threshold.
Right.
But
so
now they will be required.
Right, so somebody that's doing a project like in their backyard, putting in a deck or removing some lawn now has to have some BMP requirements, is that correct? Yeah, provided it meets certain thresholds. Yeah, which Who's gonna check
I
those?
don't have the permit in front of me, but I think it's 5,000 square feet.
Okay, that's pretty
That
big.
can add up pretty quick for a driveway or.
We have a question in the room.
Quick question, is this ancillary projects to a single family residential, or even just building a single family residential?
I believe it's new and redevelopment.
Yeah, so it's upgrading, like if you're putting in a carport with a shop, so you have the shop impervious surface and you have the little driveway. Then
What's the cost of the permit?
It wouldn't be a permit, you just have to implement LID measures. So when they come to the planning department and they say, oh, I'm doing this project and putting in a shop and this pathway.
Condition of approval, you're supposed to do these.
Right,
things.
they're supposed to now get, oh, when you're doing this, you're at, 6,000 square foot, you're adding a impervious surface, which now gravel counts as impervious surface, apparently in this permit too. You have to offset that impervious surface by putting in these LID measures, and it could be a little rain garden, a retention basin. I think EOA, you guys are going to be putting together the cheat sheets for this. So it should be easy for us easy in quotes for planning, just like, oh, you're updating your property, here's the cheat sheet for that. Here's some BMPs you can do, but they have to pay now to get those BMPs installed and make it as part of their plan.
That's right.
It's good for water quality. It's gonna be a little more expensive, time consuming for an individual that's improving their property or building a property, building something. And it's also gonna add another thing for planning to keep track of.
When does this start? 6 months?
I think she said the date was 2024 in spring.
I'll be done with my project.
Okay, you can go on the next one. Thank you. Were there any other questions from anybody? And did everybody hear that discussion, just so we?
And just the reason I ask is the cost of building a home is exponentially getting more expensive.
Yeah.
We all know and speak of being in a house crisis or housing crisis, but I know that our all of our school boards just updated to $3.54, I think, a square foot for fees. Our fire boards are looking at increasing it. We've increased it. It's just the amount of money up front you have to put down to even start construction, let alone adding ancillary things to what those things are. Really, I see them as becoming more and more and more prohibitive to wanting to even build a home.
Yeah. It's hard. This is one point where we're literally addressing water quality issues at the residential level, though. Yeah, and we knew it was coming at some point, so. We've gotten away with not having to do it for a long time, and we have water quality degradation because of it. Yeah.
That makes sense, but it's tough.
Yeah, no, it is. It's another cost. Okay, criteria for stormwater treatment, Bonnie. Thank you. Sorry we derailed that one.
Right. So we covered that one. Second to last bullet, self-retaining area design, crediting criteria and subsurface infiltration of stormwater will now be subject to Regional Water Board Executive Officer approval. So previously you could just say we're doing this and move ahead, and now they've added in Executive Officer approval, but there's no real clear timeline or process described in the admin draft language. So hopefully we can clear that up through CASQA conversations with the board. And then last bullet, self-certification now requires that half of all measures are inspected every 5 years.
All right, that one will be very difficult because we barely able to inspect our current projects that are just being constructed.
Yeah, so CASQA has proposed some
Recorded, but
alternative
yes.
ways to cover the inspection requirements here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all of the changes will be, you know, once they're finalized, they'll presumably go through other iterations, and we'll see something different in the spring. Hopefully, State Board will be open to the comments that CASQA members have made, and what we see in the spring might look very different. And then there'll be as I mentioned, a public commenting period, potentially additional changes before the final permit is adopted next fall. So to be determined. Next steps, so CASQA is still discussing changes and concerns with State Water Board staff. We expect to see more sections of the admin draft language in September. And if you guys have any comments, if any of you have read sections of the permit, you have questions, you can direct those to me or Jill or Brittany at EOA, or via Angela, she could forward those on too. And then we can make sure that your comments and questions make it into the list that CASQA is assembling. So I just do want to comment that State Board and CASQA have a series of meetings that have been ongoing. They're fairly limited in time. So what they're doing is they have to prioritize the comments that they discuss with the State Board to try to hit the ones that have the biggest implications for changes to stormwater programs.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the informal draft anticipated for September of this year with spring 2024 being the potential start of the permit. Is that correct?
No. The full informal draft is just an admin courtesy draft that the state board is sharing with CASQA and maybe other interested stakeholders around the state. It's not a public review draft.
Okay.
The public review draft is anticipated in the spring of
Okay.
2024, and then it'll be another 6 months before it actually is adopted and becomes effective.
So we're looking.
So we won't really know what the final language looks like until fall of 2024.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Is there any questions
Yeah,
for at this
Sorry.
time? Is there anybody from management council first and then
I have,
Bonnie, or then Betsy, we can go to you. Oop, you got a sneak peek.
I have a question.
Yes, I don't see any hands raised. Go
Um,
ahead.
Yeah, this is Marina Delajanis. Are we gonna expect just routine updates on this from Bonnie's team if they are finding out any additional information as they're having conversations about this? Can we have these just brief updates
Yeah,
with every?
I'm requesting this from Bonnie, if there's any changes, if there wasn't significant meetings or changes, like for the November meeting. I could just have a slide that says that, but Bonnie, yeah, I'll check in with Bonnie before every management council, if there's any updates, she can do a review, much like today, is that okay?
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if the management council does end up wanting to send any letters of support or letters of concerns or comment letters,
Right.
then we have some time to draft that and prepare that and then get the input from Bonnie and her team based off of conversations.
Right, yeah, I think that would be good, because I feel there's a lot of things in there that are gonna add a burden to us. And it'd be good if there's any comments, we can put them together and get them in. I also want the updates, so when we get the permits and we realize, oh, we have to do all these now requirements, it's like, well, we're not caught off guard, we know, we've been told, we've gone through this, we had opportunity,
And I
or
want to
we
make
can
sure,
prepare, start looking at budgets, maybe increasing stormwater inspector staffing or something like that, so.
I definitely want to ensure that other county departments and other city departments as well, so like CDD or Public Works has the opportunity to listen in on these conversations and provide any comments or concerns.
So what, if possible, maybe putting it when it comes out in, I guess, springtime, so maybe early 2024, looking at doing a board of supervisor presentation and inviting the cities and the, all departments that might be interested. Because even within the board of supervisors, we can use RCRC or CSAC or others. This sounds like it's more at a bureaucratic level, not a assembly bill or Senate bill level. They've already been given directive to move forward on something like this. And so if we don't work with some of the other groups, it's gonna kind of go under the radar in the sense that bills are very obvious and in your face, but bureaucratic guidelines typically are, you have to really focus on that and pay attention.
Right. Is that something, Bonnie, that we could get as part of the contract, get your help with that presentation and information?
Yeah, we can talk about how it fits in with our miscellaneous on-call
Yeah.
services task or something else. And I like the way you're thinking. You do have this 60-day public comment period in spring, whenever that starts. The timing is never going to be good. It's always going to fall when you have a lot of other stuff going on. And there will be hearings at the state board level when they're considering adoption of the permit. And I just want to say that if there are still changes to the permit that have a significant impact on your municipalities, then having an elected official provide verbal comment at the state board meeting, that can be very effective. And those kinds of comments go a long way to potentially making change in the permit. So thinking about that now, we don't have any dates or anything on the calendar yet, but starting to think about who you might invite or who you could prime for, usually you have a 3-minute window to make comments, so you have to be very targeted. But
Maybe we can do
I
that.
know that other CASCO members would appreciate any elected official hearing at those water board hearings.
Maybe we can go there and do a field trip in lieu of the spring quarter management council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Any
Yeah.
other questions? Huh? No, any questions? Betsy? you have one?
Are you gonna talk about the annual report in this meeting sometime?
Yes, I believe I have a couple bullet points on it, and when I get through it, if you have more questions about it, you can.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't.
Okay, is there any other questions for Bonnie before we give her the option to go or stay?
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. And we'll hear from you at the next meeting, and I'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so old business item 5, C. So good news is we did get awarded the Stormwater Resources Plan. It's a 319H grant for 145. I'm working with the water board to get that agreement. It's going before the Board of Supervisors on
Next week.
yep, next week. And they're gonna approve it. Yay. We have in that agreement, or in that packet, we are contracting with the nonprofit California Rural Water Association and their partners, MC Engineering. If you guys recall from previous meetings, it was an engineering called SES, but Rural Water has since switched. And MC Engineering worked with us on a USDA grant doing a watershed assessment and did the sanitary survey for the water purveyors. So they already have a bunch of research and stuff, and they're gonna hit the ground running, and they're not gonna have to reinvent the wheel on a large portion of this. And they're the selected preferred contractors that are with Cal Rural Water. So we're excited for them to help out on this. If you guys recall, we did have to do some contributions because the grant doesn't cover urban areas, but we wanted those included in the plan. So that's why we have some contributions. If I have the wrong, then this is this. So just ignore this reimbursement agreement. That's actually the wrong item. That should be on the blue ribbon committee one. So you can ignore those. And that's all I have for that slide. Any questions? Sorry about that. Okay. So that's starting, that'll be starting soon if that gets approved. I think that was it. Yeah, sorry for that typo. I had it the same thing on 2 different slides, so you'll see that later. So, okay. Item 5, D with
Yeah.
Marina.
So a brief update on stormwater program sustainability. We at the Lake County Water Resources Department allocated $75,000 in our budget for the contribution of that stormwater consultant position that was approved recently by the Board of Supervisors. So what I'm doing is I'm reconvening conversations with both city managers just to see where they're at in terms of the budget that they allocated for this position. And then I will work directly with staff to draft up some key points based off of what our permit requirements are. And then especially with information that Bonnie shared with us on what this position would cover. My question for the council is we can go ahead and draft up an RFP or RQ for this position in preparation of proposing that and sharing that draft proposal to release following the county purchasing policy in the November meeting. Does the council want to see that? Do we have council members who want to participate in the assistance of developing the RFQ for the scope of this position? This is specific to a stormwater coordinator position, contracted out.
I think the city of Clear Lake would be interested in seeing it. I don't think we necessarily would want to take part in helping make it, because I'm sure you'd be a lot better at that, but I'd definitely like to get an eye on it and show city manager and stuff before it's finalized, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
okay. Yeah, I want to make sure I don't want to delay this any later than it has to be, but I do think since there are contributions from both the cities and the county, and with the guidance of the council, we can present at the November meeting that draft RFQ to go through the scope of that, what that position would entail, and then we can release the RFP from there.
So you're proposing the scope to be at the November meeting,
Yeah.
and make sure we're not forgetting anything on there, and then that would be used to make the RFP.
I would like to present the RFP with the scope in the actual scope of work as an attachment for the November meeting. And then
Okay.
between now and then, of course, reach out to the cities. I'll have conversations with the city managers, city council members, and then of course our internal staff to help develop that. And then come at the November council meeting, present that draft RFQ. Hopefully we get the thumbs up from everyone and then release it immediately.
is that scope going to be inclusive of the presented draft topics that are gonna be part of the new permit
That's what-
requirement?
That's what I would like
Okay.
to. I would like to make it to include that at least. That way that position can just continue to move forward.
Okay,
And that's what I have for that. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns with that?
I don't have anything in chat.
And as a refresher, that position was decided to contract out based off of conversations that Director De Leon had with both of the city managers. That was their objective, to, in lieu of onboarding either a county staff or a city staff member, have a consultant on board for that position.
Okay.
I have.
I hate to go backwards, but I just realized that I was incorrect in the last slide. So there are reimbursements that agreements that went out for our stormwater resources plan for these amounts that we agreed to contribute for this grant as match. So I'm sorry. But just so you guys know, I sent one to Kylie and Bethany. You guys have those reimbursement agreements. And because they're only like 4,950, they're underneath your city's threshold for council approval. So let me know if your city managers have any questions about that. And we signed ASAP, so when they're doing work on that, including stuff for Lakeport or City of Clear Lake, we can make sure they're billing it. They can do work for you guys, and we can include that. So sorry for that.
Okay, Adeline is trying to get Alan to sign it. They're moving this week, moving offices, so it might be next week that you get it, but I'll keep on him about it.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for either of those items before I go on to 5E? Okay, so we had monitoring, we did MS4 urban monitoring sampling, including one site in Lakeport, one site in Clear Lake at these dates. And we also did the state required pyrethroid sampling, as described in our baseline pyrethroid monitoring plan and our QAPP that we got approved through the state. We had 2 events, so we have total 4 events. They're listed at the bottom. And so we sampled January and April. And yay, we didn't have any toxicity detected. We had no exceedances. The only detections we got were very small. They were below the trigger levels that are provided in the order, so we didn't have to report any of that to the water board, even though I did send the reports to them just to be transparent, and they appreciate that. If you notice, Lakeport had 0.46 nanograms, and Clear Lake had 0.76 nanograms of bianthrin, which is like a household herbicide or pesticide that's used. People spray it around their homes, you know, for insect control. But you can see that's a very low amount. So good job, everybody. We have 2 more samplings to go. One of those could be a dry event. So if there's water, say like in Forbes Creek or the drain in Nice, anytime between now and September, we would be able to sample that, and that would count for the dry weather event. And then there's just one more event for wet weather.
Do you think that the difference between 0.46 and 0.76, granted all small detections below levels, do you think the difference is just population amount?
I don't know. That's a very, very, very small amount. The sites that we do sampling in Lakeport and Clear Lake are literally in the middle of, like, they're heavy urban. Like, if there was any pyrethroids being used in amounts, they're going to be detected there. So yeah, I don't know what would describe that. The only thing maybe I could say is Clear Lake is not as much flow. The Lakeport site, there could be some lake influence, whereas the Clear Lake, I think the lake's a little farther away from the selected site. So it's probably a little more concentrated, which might be more of that. But very, very low amounts, like.
Angela, what's the minimum for exceedance?
It's in our plan. There's 5 types of pyrethroids that we get monitored. And so this is Biofen's just one of them, and the other 4 didn't have any detects at all. But it's different for each one what the minimum trigger is. They're very low. It's like 0.8 or 0.9 nanograms or something per liter. It's something I think if one of these was doubled, it might get at the exceedance. But I'm not exactly sure, but it's in the plan, and I can get back to you on that.
No, I just wanted to Supervisor Sabatier to have an idea of what the maximum was before
Yeah.
it's hit exceedance, that's all.
They're very, very low. I was worried that I was like, man, anything in there might get detected, but this is good news. When we say no toxicity, that means they run this test on this little critter, which is Hypholea. And so they take all the water and sediment. We fill these jars with water or sediment. And you can see there's Will doing that. And they put it in basically an aquarium, several aquariums, and they put these little critters in there. And they see if they survive or not. And we have to have 80% survivability to have a no toxicity. So if there's any pyrethroid in there that these little guys are really sensitive to, they'll just all die and then we'll get a toxicity reading. So just FYI, that's what that test is. Any questions on this? I wanted to be clear that we are supposed to do reporting on this and get it to you guys before June 30th, and we have not been able to do that, and I do not have time to do that right now, but I will be getting to that when I can. I definitely want to get it to you guys before September 15th, so you have it for your reporting. Oh no, my battery's low. Did I not have
Go get
that?
Is the charger in there? No.
The charger's on my, when you go in the bookshelf, the microscope, and there's that little plug thing, there's the charger should be plugged into that.
Okay.
The microscope.
Yeah, that's the scientist lab there. I really want to get these reports to you guys, and I'm doing the best we can. We're short staffed, we're doing the best. Our reports even late, our county ones are late from last year, so I'll get them to you and you get them. We can give you guys the data and you could fill in the report if you want, or at least you could submit the data like the Excel if worse comes to worse. I'm just letting you guys know. This is why we need a stormwater coordinator. We're well that. So just being clear, transparent with everybody. Any questions? Item 5, old business. This is the last one. The Blue Ribbon Committee Rehabilitation for Clear Lake grant update. We had previous discussions about combining this section in and getting a contractor to help do that work for a guidance plan for illicit discharge and some other items for stormwater program. And we have not yet conducted the RFPs or FQs for that. So just FYI, again, transparent in what our status of being able to do those. Any questions on that item? Okay. So new business, trash plan survey training. We had a survey training the 19th and Lakeport, Clear Lake and County staff all showed up, and that was in Kelseyville. Good job, you guys. Just a reminder that this year we have to do surveys also in the fall. So that's for all the folks that were there. And was there any comments or questions about that trash plan and what's the status? Are the 2 jurisdictions, you guys get all the rest of your trash surveys done?
Yes, we did.
I didn't yet for Lakeport. I'm in the process, but I just don't understand why we have 32 locations that are identified for inspection within 3.2 square miles. So does anyone know that answer?
I think Andrew's on the phone.